Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Money Show. My name is Numan Akhtar. As usual, I'm joined by Ali Suleiman, my co-host. How's things going, bro?
I'm good. It feels like it's been a while since we've recorded, but I'm feeling great. I'm fresh out of exams. Obviously, you've had a few extra weeks off than me. But yeah, I'm feeling good. Raring to go into today's episode, to be perfectly honest. It's been one we've had in the diary for, I think, over 3 or 4 weeks now, with a guest, which I'm very excited to introduce on. But how are you?
All good. Just, as you said, finished up from exams, had that nice 2 weeks off. Eid, of course.
Yes.
That was a nice, because it fell perfectly on the weekend. So everyone had all 3 days, more or less all 3 days off.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice time with family and of course, you've got your summer internship around the corner, so...
Yeah, no, exactly. We're filming this 3 days away from when I move out. It's obviously a big change, but we've still got episodes ready to go and still filming to be done. So yeah, really excited for it. But we could talk about that a lot. But the main, obviously, for our regular listeners and viewers, we're joined by yet another finance professional within the sector, joining us on the Smart Money Show today. So who is it? Well, today we are speaking with Abrar Azad. He is a Bolton-born chartered global management accountant, currently working as an assistant vice president in the UK CFO Office at Deutsche Bank, and serving as the youngest ever chair of the Deutsche Bank Muslim network. Alongside his career in banking, he is also a passionate community builder and charity activist. By the end of this episode, you will have a deeper understanding of how to build a meaningful and value-driven career in global finance, how to balance professional ambitions with community impact and cultural ambitions, but also how personal identity can enhance leadership and success within the fast-moving corporate world. So in this conversation, we will explore Abrar's personal journey into finance, his experience inside one of the world's largest financial institutions, the work he is doing to drive change through community networks, and the lessons he has for students and aspiring professionals looking to navigate their very own paths into this elite industry. So, without further ado, a very modest intro for our guest today. I'm very excited to welcome on Abrar onto the podcast. Assalamu alaikum and hello, Abrar. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for the very kind introduction. Not sure if I'm deserving of that such an introduction, but I appreciate it. Jazakallah khair. Very happy to be here with you both, and I can see the noor on both of your faces post exams, alhamdulillah, and post Eid. For the listeners, we're recording this a few days after Eid al-Adha, so yeah, belated Eid Mubarak to you both as well.
Yeah, and Eid Mubarak to yourself, Abrar. And of course, as we said at the start, we've been very excited to do this. And because it's been, I think also, we rarely schedule this far in advance. And so it's been something we've been looking forward to. Oh, 10th of June, we're filming with Abrar. It's been something we've been looking forward to. So I don't think I want to waffle on any more. Naman, I'm going to let you get into the first question of the episode.
Yeah, so of course, as usual, we normally preface the whole episode with a bit of a background, and just so that we can get more of an understanding of what built Abrar to the person he is today. So, quick and easy, a broad question. Abrar, tell us about your upbringing in Bolton, and what were some of the values or experiences you had that shaped you?
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, taking us all the way back to the beginning. So, yeah, as you mentioned, alhamdulillah, I was born and raised in Bolton. For those who don't know Bolton, some people may know just from Amir Khan, the boxer. Yeah, that's probably Bolton's biggest export. But it's a small town up in the north near Manchester, and very sort of working class. Everyone's sort of working sort of normal jobs. There's not really much of a corporate world or anything like that. So I grew up in a very sort of working class background and family, alhamdulillah. Um, um, and I'd say one of the big things about my childhood was my parents, and they really instilled a lot of things in me that sort of have stayed with me for a long, long time and stayed with me until today. And they're not like things that you'd necessarily assume like, oh, they must be corporate people for me to work in the corporate world now. So like my dad, he's been sort of self-employed his whole life, just working in sort of different restaurants, running different restaurants, takeaways, the food industry, that sort of thing. And my mum, she's been self-employed as well. She works as a translator for the NHS. So I've seen, well, yeah, this as well, like raising 4 kids, it's not that easy, right? So I've grown up firsthand seeing just the work ethic of my parents. I think that's really, really stuck with me. Like, never just let yourself just laze about and just do nothing. So have that purpose whatever you're doing. And yeah, as I mentioned, I grew up. I went to like just a normal state school, you know, um, where you don't really have those role models. Like, everyone's just sort of working. The teachers sort of only care about you if you're on like a grade D, and you need to get a grade C, and you need that pass mark to meet their criteria. That's sort of the teaching environment I was a part of. And then I moved into sort of college, and even at that point, I'd say similar to you guys right now. Like, I was very sort of forward looking. I always liked thinking about the future and seeing, what can I do in the future, and then work my way backwards. What do I need to get there? So it's very weird. Like, even when I was like year 10, year 11, I was looking at universities and looking at courses and seeing what entry requirements they needed, what A levels they'd like, what kind of work experience they wanted, and I just worked my way back from there. And this was like, yeah, this was not common amongst like my friend group. My friend group were looking at me like, you're in year 10. What are you thinking about university? But that's just how my mind operated. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, I was always into like the maths and business, that side of things. And naturally, that led me to sort of the finance world. So I studied finance and accounting at Warwick, alhamdulillah. And um, yeah, and yeah, I think I've spoken too much about your first question, but yeah, I'll pause there.
No, no, no. I mean, that's exactly why. I mean, almost every guest we asked that beginning question just because we think it provides a lot of color to the picture that we're gonna paint in the rest of this episode. And that was really great, to be perfectly honest, especially because we have so many varying backgrounds on the podcast, and we really think it will establish more of a rapport between you and our audience as well later on in the episode. But you've already answered some of our future questions, because we were going to ask, like, was the career in finance something you always had in mind? But you said that developed through your passion and your natural talent within maths and business, and of course studying it, accounting and finance at Warwick. But your degree at Warwick, was it what you expected it to be, and how much has it actually helped you within your career? And obviously we'll get onto your current role, but how much did it actually help you further your career?
Now, that's a great question for a lot of people, and I think I will have a bit of a unique answer because I don't know, because you guys are university students. I don't know if I should be telling you this, but I went into university with very much a mindset of what's going to happen after university. Like, I'm looking for a job, and a specific kind of job, like working. I want to work at a big company, work with really smart people. How do I get there? And university is a way for me to get there. So I went in with that mindset, and I knew from pretty early on that pretty much all companies just required you to get a 2-1. You didn't really need a first. A first is great, but it's not like it wasn't a requirement for any of the companies that I was looking at, right? So that's the sort of mindset I went into university with, and because of that, I think it actually helped me because I got involved with a lot of things like outside of my modules and degree work, if you will, which, if anything, it makes you stand out. When you do end up going through interview processes, assessment centers, all of that stuff. Everyone's done a finance degree. When you're in an investment banking assessment center, everyone's done a finance degree. You're not particularly special if you've done a finance degree. And I realize I'm speaking to students right now, but that's sort of the honest truth, right? And like, mashallah, you guys have got this podcast going on that, who else can talk about a podcast in any of their interviews, right? So so mashallah, keep up what you guys are doing. So yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, I got involved with a lot of things while I was at university that was sort of non-degree related. I was part of a society called Enactus, which very interesting. I did a bit of consulting work for a project that was related to sort of sanitary products for underprivileged women, like sort of in developing countries. So yeah, sort of led a team and working on the finances, how we can attract sponsors and money for that, and sort of purchase these sanitary products, right? So it's very sort of random stuff that you never ever think about, but it's just at university you have the free time to get stuck in and develop those skills, right? So that's one, and two was, and this was a big part of my university life, was the Islamic Society at Warwick. So there was there was a good Muslim community when we got there, and yeah, I just wanted to sort of develop that community further. I think that's always been like a feature of my personality is just to sort of bring people together, and I saw the Islamic Society as a great opportunity to do that. So I served as the treasurer during my time at university, which is interesting because say you're like 18, 19 years old, and I remember in Ramadan I was managing like a budget of like £20,000 for the month, where you have to buy like you have to speak to caterers and provide iftar for all the students on campus. So that's one thing that we did. We provided sort of free meals for everyone on campus, and it literally is a big responsibility. It's a big amount of £20,000 is a lot of money. So you're there, and this is like during exam season. You've got one screen up with your revision that you're meant to be doing, and one screen up with a spreadsheet trying to manage £20,000. So those sort of things really sort of built my experience with money, with numbers, and with people as well, which I think is a big thing, and I think that helped me a lot during university. And so I don't know if that answered your initial question of my university degree, but yeah, that was sort of my approach to university.
No, it 100% does because I think what you've displayed is that take being proactive in uni will have like maybe indirect benefits. Of course, being a treasurer, you said, funny enough, I'm going to be treasurer for my ISA in the next academic year. So, and as you outlined, there's skills that can get directly transferred from those. But then, of course, your enactus work, just the general idea of just being proactive during uni, how that can play benefits, is something that we really appreciate by viewers and listeners, and is great advice for them. But then one last question on this section. So to kind of round it off, so how have your early experiences helped you like stay grounded today?
Oh, that's a great question, especially the part about staying grounded. I think one thing that's really helped me is the people that I've surrounded myself with. And in particular, like my upbringing in Bolton was quite unique, where it was very much a community. Like that saying where it takes a village to raise a child. I was very much like part of that village, and alhamdulillah, like, I'm still very good friends with a lot of my friends from primary school and from secondary school, which is I don't think it's that common nowadays. So even now, whenever I go back home to Bolton, sort of on the weekend, I'll make time to see, some of my old sort of school friends, childhood friends, and we just catch up. And it really like it helps you just sort of get away from the hustle and bustle of. So I live in London now, which is completely different world, right? Where everyone's rushing, everyone's got somewhere to be, everyone's got a destination. In Bolton, it's a complete opposite. Alhamdulillah, everyone's content, everyone's relaxed, and I think Bolton is that sort of happy place for me where I go back and sort of disconnect from the hustle and bustle, and that's really helped me. I think I guess just some practical advice for anyone else and for the listeners is no matter like where you get in your career, don't forget like the people that were there even before you even had a job, or even like your family who were there before you even knew how to walk. They were there for you, right? So it's important for us to sort of never forget those.
100%, and I think obviously you'll know better than us, Abrar, about I guess a sense of escapism that is needed when, I mean, you touched on it briefly in that answer, a sense of escapism that is needed when you're in a role like yours. I mean, it does, as you said, hustle bustle. It does constantly kind of feel like you're always on it, always on edge. I imagine, and of course we're going to get into it actually in this section very soon. But that sense of escapism, I think sometimes we take for granted. Even like this podcast for me and Naman. I mean, you were talking about childhood friends. Me and Naman have been friends since year 8. Did pretty much the same GCSEs together, same school, same
Oh,
A
no
levels,
way. That's
etc.
amazing.
And
That's
exactly
amazing.
right. And trust me, at times we do get fed up of each other. But I will say that that sense of escapism, but also the fact that I know there's someone else out there trying to, from my perspective, when they're trying to pursue the same thing, it just kind of does add to that that belief system that, you know what, maybe it is possible and maybe it isn't that bad, if you know what I mean. And recognizing that support system is equally as important. And I think I'm not calling it older bra by any means, but I think the older that you get, the more you realize that that support system is that valuable to yourself. But listen, we could talk about family, friends, and of course childhood homes for a very long time. But in the interest of time, and obviously for our audience as well, it's time to move on to the next section. One of my favorites, if not my favorite of all, but your career journey into finance, Abrar. So walk us through, if you can, your journey into the world of finance. We know what you studied. We know you had a natural talent for maths and business. But how did you first break in? Maybe was it via an internship or something else? Could you talk to us about that?
So while I was at university in my first year, um, yeah, I was very sort of dead set on working in a large investment bank, as I said, and working with really smart people. They were my two objectives really. And alhamdulillah, in my first year, I did a spring week at JP Morgan, and I guess even before before getting into JP Morgan, I, as I mentioned, I was very proactive even as a kid. So in Manchester, there's not many opportunities, but the opportunities that are there, I really found them and dug them out. So I did like 2 weeks of work experience at HSBC, in their sort of commercial bank area in Manchester, and I did 1 week at RSM, the accounting company. So this was while I was in college. So I leveraged those experiences to get the spring week at JP Morgan, and that was just 3 4 days. You know what a spring week is? It's just an insight, just sort of getting your foot in the door into some of these big organizations, um, and you're just sort of shadowing a few employees. You don't learn a lot, but it's great in terms of just the sort of physical exposure, particularly if you've never really seen what an investment bank is or does before. Like if you're not from London, people don't really appreciate that. Nobody really knows what an investment bank is, or nobody has even heard of an investment bank. Nobody even, like a JP Morgan. No one has really. You don't even you don't hear of JP Morgan because it's very much like a London financial hub type thing. So that spring was my first experience of London and the corporate life in London. And then this way it gets interesting. So my second year, so yeah, as I mentioned, so I've got the picture in my head, classic spring week, summer internship, grad program, and then off into the sunset, right? That was my dream. That was the plan. And then my second year comes, and I'm going through all the applications, alhamdulillah, interviews, and yeah, I did like 4 assessment centers, all in London, um, at different investment banks, and that was great. But the issue was one of my friends from Bolton moved to London at the time, so I used those opportunities, those assessment centers, as just sort of to hang out with my friend and just see him and explore London, which when I should have just sort of stayed in my hotel room and prepped for these assessment centers, right? So I didn't get any offers for any summer internship because of that reason, um, and I was like, okay, that's a big setback, right? Because I had this vision in my head that spring week, summer internship, grad program, sunset. That was the plan, and I was like, okay, so you regroup, and actually, what I did in that summer was I did some volunteering instead. Like I went over to Greece, and I worked on a few refugees or protection projects with a charity, in the summer. So I did some fundraising with a group from London, and then went off to Greece and did some charity work basically. Um, so what I was very keen to do was just not like sit around all summer and do nothing. Um, so yeah, alhamdulillah, I managed to get that experience. And then when it came to grad recruiting, I didn't make that same mistake again. So alhamdulillah, I went through the application process at Deutsche, That was the first assessment center that I did, and there was no hanging out with friends this time. I stayed in my hotel room, just prepped for the assessment center. Alhamdulillah, I did the assessment center and got the sort of graduate program offer. And I was very happy with the offer. As I said, I had two conditions for whatever job I wanted to go in. Was one was work with really smart people, and one was work in a big organization, or a big investment bank. That was all my two objectives, if you like. So, yeah, alhamdulillah, and yeah, that's sort of my journey breaking into finance. It's a little bit unconventional, but I'd say the main takeaway from that is particularly for those. I know the market is very competitive right now. For those who aren't able to get any summer internships, like don't think that that's sort of like the end of your journey there. Um, Regroup and find other things, whether that's volunteering, startup, side hustle, podcast, whatever it may be. Do do something that summer, and what you'll actually find is when it comes to interviews, like for graduate programs, etc., as I mentioned before, everyone has a finance degree or economics or a related degree. But what else can you say apart from that that will make you stand out? You got to remember, like the people that are interviewing you, part of what they're looking at is, can I work next to this guy, for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, for the next however many years. And if you have the interesting things to talk about that no one else can really mention, it goes a long, long way. So yeah, that's my journey breaking into breaking into finance.
No, amazing. I think we're going to pinpoint a few parts in that in some future questions. But something I wanted to pick up on is, and you actually you said it right at the end there, was I'm just going to reinstate it and reiterate it in a sense. But I don't think I've said this on the podcast yet, but I was quite close to not landing a summer internship this summer. And it's quite scary because genuinely, and Naman, you can corroborate this, we were exactly like yourself, Abrar. And Naman, I think you're still thinking this way, which is like spring, summer, grass scheme, sunset. I love that. I'm still going to use it from now on. But that was literally our mindset. We're like, listen, we're going to do this exactly how it's going to be. Even if we don't convert, it's going to be spring, summer, grad scheme. And there was a very, very important moment, probably a couple months before I got my internship offer. I was like 150 applications deep, and I didn't do as well as I wanted to in my A levels, and my universities and the biggest, they were the best. And so I was genuinely worried because I feel like you can get spring week through charisma, but some internship, they look a bit more intrinsically at what you actually can offer and what your grades say and stuff, except that's how it sounds in my head. But I was genuinely worried. I was like, what's next? And I wish I had someone like yourself, Abrar, to say to me that if you didn't get some internship, and luckily I have, but if you didn't get one, that doing something else just prove that you'll make the best out of a bad situation. You'll be proactive, volunteer. As you said, you going to Greece is probably an experience no one else would have been able to match despite having an internship. So I think that's a message I want to reiterate to our listeners and viewers. It's just that if you don't get that internship or employment or role or whatever, that offer that you wanted, do something else with the time. Don't just kind of sit melancholic and, trying to recount your failures. Make something out of that. Would you agree, Naman?
Yeah, no, 100%. But even in general, though, that the story of like perseverance is literally like one of a kind. A lot of people, they just think that they just start over stressing. They're like, okay, I haven't got some internship. Like a lot of people, like they use this word, am I cooked? Am I cooked? People keep on saying that. And it's just like your career path is basically in your hands. Whether you have a spring, whether you don't have a spring, whether you have a summer, whether you don't have a summer, if you can keep on persevering, you can get into any firm for any role. But back to the podcast then, I guess. So a question I had is that, so now that of course you've moved from a graduate to a you went from someone who's studying at university to now your current role, and of course you progressed through that. So could you talk about the skills that you need and you utilize within this role, and how did you actually switch from that like university graduate to a professional?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer the second one first in terms of how do you shift from being like a student mindset to a working mindset. And the answer is you can't really prepare for it. It's only sort of after you start that you can really get into it. The first thing that will initially hit you is the early mornings. and the sleeping patterns. When you're a university student, you don't have any early mornings. You sleep when you want to sleep, and you wake up when you want to wake up. So that's the first thing that will immediately hit you. Um, in terms of the actual working life, I'd say one big thing is that you don't, as a student, you get a lot of guidance, like from your lecturers, from your classmates. You have a big sort of support structure, right? Where you get told, yeah, you have this assignment, it's due in 2 months' time, it's 2,000 words, and these are the topics you have to talk about, and away you go. At work, it's a little bit different. At work is yeah. I remember on my first day at work, I'm in the yeah, I'm there. I'm in the office. I'm ready. Like my first task. My manager. So I'm in treasury, right? I'm doing a rotation in treasury. So my manager, he sends me this big Excel spreadsheet, like one of those with like 20,000 rows, like 100 columns, and and he says and he gives me this task. And I've used Excel like maybe like a handful of times at university. You don't really use Excel at university. You're more writing assignments or answering exam questions. So I'm asking him like the most like basic things. I'm thinking I'm so out of my depth here. Like, why did he give this to me? He needs to give this to someone else. Um, but you just start Googling, you find out how to do things. um, you ask your manager when you need to, but you figure out a lot of things yourself. And as I said, there's a lot more autonomy. Like you're not handholded. You don't get 2 months to do things. You get 2 days to do things, or sometimes 2 hours to do things. So it's a big shift in your mindset and in terms of that's a big shift actually. One thing I would like to mention, and I think might be useful for the audience, is particularly like if you come from a background where like you're not a family of corporate bankers or anything like that, is you can really have a feeling of imposter syndrome, and it's very very much real. And even if you're from a normal background, but students going into working life, you're working with all these guys and girls with 10, 20 years experience, and you're just fresh out of a few assignments and a few exams. um and imposter syndrome can really hit you, like you don't belong there. What am I doing here? There's so many people better than me. Oh, there's all these other people in my cohort that have you know that have done so much more than me. They can all code, they can all or whatever they can do that you can't do, and that's very much real. But I would say is first, like, recognize that that is a thing. Don't like push it down. um and you can definitely work on it. Like, it's just a shift in the mindset. Like, don't be scared to like ask for things at work. You got to remember, like, they hired you for a reason. Like, you're not, it's not a charity. You're not there volunteering. You're there to add value. And yeah, really just internalize that. And don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Don't be afraid to question things if things don't make sense. A lot of the time, if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to a lot of other people. But because they have 10, 15 years experience, they can't put their hand up and say, that doesn't make sense. So they yeah, I would say, yeah, they're the two main things.
Yeah, no, I loved it. What an answer there was a lot of gold in that one. Looking forward to listening to that, just that specific answer back. But there's something you said right at the end there again, which I'm picking up on random points in the answers. But obviously, there's no such thing as a stupid question. But a caveat to that, something I learned from a previous guest in our old season, was that just don't ask the same stupid question more than once. That means you didn't listen in the first place. So if you make a mistake, ask that stupid question, go for it in the first time. Just don't do it again. Otherwise, it shows that you just haven't got the listening talent. I'm sure you can corroborate that, Abrar.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And before you ask a question, ask Google. Well, now you can ask ChatGPT, ask Copilot, ask whoever you can ask them first, and then ask your manager. And yeah, and yeah, as you said, don't ask the same thing twice.
Yes, no, 1,000,000%. And I think that's a perfect time to and a perfect segue onto our next section, which we're going to go into a day in the life at Deutsche Bank. Of course, you are an assistant vice president. You've worked your way up from a graduate scheme at Deutsche Bank onto this and onto some future roles soon, hopefully as well. But for our listeners and viewers, and a little bit of me and Naman as well, to be perfectly honest, what do you actually do as an assistant vice president in the UK CFO office?
That's a great question, and my answer would differ depending on what day you ask me. But I'll try to give like an overview of what I do. So essentially, my managing director is the UK CFO of Deutsche Bank, and everything that comes into him will come into me in terms of whether that's financial reporting or management reporting or managing stakeholders, whether it's working with the UK CEO or working with external regulators or UK tax authorities, all of that stuff so falls into our remit. And in terms of day to day, a lot of it is sort of financial analysis. So Deutsche Bank it's a German bank, so obviously a big presence in Germany, but particularly the investment banking side, a lot of it sits in the UK, and with that falls under our remit as the UK CFO office. So I sort of cover all the desks, all businesses, all business lines in the UK, but just from a regional lens, so just their business in the UK and Ireland. So any sort of big trades, any one-off items, any big cost items, I will see that in the UK and speak to the relevant stakeholders and yeah, tell that story upwards to senior management. I think that's the best way to describe it.
No, perfect. And of course, now that so you start off as a graduate, then of course you did a few rotations. I assume. Then you of course progressed on from analyst to associate to of course AVP right now. So could you talk to us about that? What's the progression like, and in the sense that how does the work change?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I guess when you're a graduate or an analyst or even an associate, you sort of just implement other people's solutions or yeah, you like your manager will give or your team will give you some tasks and you do them and you make sure you do them very well. And over time, trust builds and you will get given more and more complex tasks and you'll be speaking to more and more senior people. And that's sort of the analyst and associate journey, right? And then once you get a bit more senior, so at AVP level, you're expected to find those solutions yourself. Like your manager's not going to say, okay, I want this answer to be like this. I want the slides or numbers to be like this. Go away and do it. Your manager will just forward you the problem, or the problem will just come to you directly, saying, the UK CEO office will be like, I need these slides. I need them yesterday, and just go. You just gotta go in and do them. There's no sort of hand holding, and yeah, that's a sort of main difference, really. Like you have to bring a lot more to the table, but with a caveat that you're you're experienced enough to do that. Like again with the imposter syndrome, don't think that you're incapable of doing that. Um, so yeah, really sort of push the boundaries, find solutions that your manager or your team wouldn't have even thought of. Like one benefit as sort of younger people, and I'm categorizing myself with you guys as well, that we can bring to the table is a lot of the digital skills. So right now, a big push is obviously a big buzzword is AI, and that's the case in any industry. Same in banking, and these sort of tools, the juniors, we've got to really sort of leverage to our benefit and to like your team and your company's benefit because the people that have been there sort of 20 years it's a lot harder for them to grasp these new tools, whereas for us we're a lot more malleable, a lot more flexible, and we can really show and find use cases for these tools. And it's only to the betterment of your career and your experience that you do that. So
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. And that's what a lot of students have in their mind. It's similar to what we said before about obviously spring, summer, grad. And then a lot of people think when they get the role, and then obviously I want to go analyst, associate, AVP, VP, whatever else is next, they think it's quite linear. But of course, that as you said, I like what you said about no one's going to hold your hand while you do it. It is consistent pressure, and it is obviously pressure makes diamonds, and you've got to perform. And whenever someone asks you to do something, and I think that's a theme I'm getting throughout the episode. To be perfectly honest.
So is there anything that now that you know working in the CFO, working within the CFO line, is that students might not really expect about it?
I would say, I would say, and say like something like as a CFO function in any organization, students and anyone you'd expect, like you have to be good at numbers, you have to be, you have to know your way around like Excel and PowerPoint, that sort of thing. That's sort of pretty commonly known, right? But I guess what maybe isn't as known or appreciated is the people side of things. Like you really, really have to be good at speaking to people and building relationships with people, and yeah, building that sort of connection with anyone you speak to, because particularly if you work in any large organization, you never know like where your paths may cross again in another project, in another, anything that you work on. You never know when you have to speak to someone again. That's number one. And number two, in a big organization, if you want to get things done fast, it's much, much easier if you know exactly who you need to contact for a certain thing, or and they would and vice versa, they should be able to contact you if they need anything, which also helps your experience and helps broaden your horizons. So the people side of things, I would say, is very, very important. One thing I always say when I speak to students is like wherever you go along the way, different roles, different journeys, like don't burn any bridges and never forget like who helped you along the way, because you never know any future door that you need opening, who holds that key. So that's something that I always sort of tell any students I speak to.
What a way to end that answer. I mean, soft skills, I think some students brush over them sometimes, or just as you said, people skills, not burning any bridges, utilizing a network, all of the above, to be perfectly honest. It is becoming more and more prominent within the industry. And I really hope that doesn't die down anytime soon, because I think for you and me, Naman, that is something that we love the most about the industry. The fact that, speaking to people, that whole client facing side, because for me a dream role for me is sales on the buy side, right? And that's constantly talking to people, and of course what we do on the podcast, so it's something that we love the prominence of within the industry, and to know that it continues to be prominent as a professional, and to know that using experiences like this for our listeners and viewers as well is important to build that up. But Abrar, it has been great to jump into this and your day in the life at Deutsche Bank, but one of the main reasons we invited you onto the show, and we're very glad you accepted, is because, of course, as we mentioned right at the top of the episode, you are the youngest chair of the Deutsche Bank Muslim network. And as fellow Muslims ourselves, me and Naman, sometimes we get questions, and we have our own questions about navigating elite corporate life as a Muslim. And we really feel you can give us an insight into how you do so, and some of the lessons you've learned and the mistakes you've made along the way as well. So I'm going to kick things off on this section, something me and Aman are very excited to jump into. So what have been some of the most valuable lessons you've learned and can share to students like us and our audience about navigating corporate life as a Muslim professional?
Yeah, no, some of the one of the interesting lessons that I've learned is the non-Muslims are they respect you a lot when you have something to hold on to. When you sort of join a team or have a new manager, if from the get-go you speak to them in a very honest way about your values, about things like Friday afternoons, between 1 and 2 p.m. Apologies, I can't join any meetings, but any meetings after that, I'm happy to join. If I need to stay a bit later, happy to do that. But just between 1 and 2, I can't do it. And they really respect you for that. But what I would say as a caveat is you have to respect your own. You have to respect yourself as well, because if one week, okay, your manager gives you 1 hour off, you go out for Jummah, the next week they see you at 1:30 p.m. chilling by the coffee machine talking to your friend, they're gonna think he's just he's having me on, he's mugging me off. So so you yourself, you have to hold to your own values and beliefs at the same time, and your non-Muslim colleagues will respect you for that. That's a big lesson. Um, Second lesson is your non-Muslim colleagues are more curious about your faith than you think. For them, we got to understand, like, they probably live in sort of non-Muslim neighborhoods. Their kids probably go to non-Muslim schools. So you may be like the only actual Muslim person that they know, or they know well. So don't be shy to sort of be open about your faith. Tell them, Ramadan's coming up. This is what Ramadan is. I'm fasting for 30 days in a row. You know, sunrise till sunset. Be very open, and you can gauge. Some people will be more curious than others. But what you'll find at work, and this is a lesson that I've learned, is people are way, way more curious than you think, and very open to learn new things. So be very open about your faith. Don't be scared. Don't like leave that part of you at home and think, okay, that's just for home me. When I get home, then I will, sort of reactivate my Muslim self. Bring that part of yourself to work, and your colleagues will respect you more for it. And it's a chance to, you know, spread some learnings and teachings as well to non-Muslims.
Yeah. Bro, I feel like you were talking directly to, I mean, I know you weren't, but I feel like you're talking directly to me there. And I connected a lot, especially what you said in the latter half of your answer about, don't just reactivate your Muslim self when you get home, right? It's, being a Muslim is something that, encapsulates your whole life, comes first in everything you do, right? And I think the curiosity part I love, because you don't want to hide it in a sense where people don't even know, and people don't feel, or in another sense, you don't want to you close it off too much from other people, that they don't feel comfortable asking questions. Because I feel
Exactly.
like when
Yeah.
anyone stops being curious or is afraid to be curious, then the whole point of community, the whole point of the melting pot of society ceases to exist, right? And that's when cohesion stops, diversity stops, and everything else in between. And it's great to know that financial institutions as large as Deutsche Bank still spur that on in a sense. And as aspiring Muslim professionals ourselves, it is very encouraging.
Yeah, generally, like the fact that it is like a relief, because you're walking into this industry that there isn't, like, not many Muslims work within this industry. So the fact that as a Muslim I can like go into this industry, be open about my religion, and like instead of like getting looked down on in a way, the fact that you say that it's something that people like respect, well, I think that's something that's a huge relief for myself, Ali, and of course any of our Muslim and any of our viewers who have different or maybe not, like, I don't, maybe not,
Any faith, any
yeah,
faith,
literally
any
any
belief.
faith.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so 100%. But then now, like, another question I want to ask, it was more specifically about this Muslim network you're part of. So could you just talk to us about the moment you first, joined this network, and what did they even do?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. When as I mentioned, so I joined, trying to fill this ISOC shaped hole that was left in me after I finished university, right? And I got in touch with the sister who was running like the Muslim network, Muslim community at Deutsche, just before I joined. And in my first week, like, I had a call with her. I came with all of sort of my ISOC energy, and bear in mind, so this is something we've not got into, but I joined the working world in 2020 during peak COVID. So very, 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 very different time to what it is now. So I joined is, yeah, we had, yeah, just like a virtual call. I asked them, like, what sort of things are you guys up to? And the response was, not too much, it's COVID, everyone's working from home, we can't really do too much. Um, but yeah, she let me sort of join sort of the admin team meetings, and just see how things work. And then yeah, it's just sort of taken on from there, where I just came with all of my ideas and energy, and started implementing and trying things, trying new events, new initiatives. I brought together like senior Muslims at the bank with juniors, and create like connect sessions, lunch and learns, that sort of thing. And it's just sort of snowballed from there. So over the last few years, we've done a lot of really really cool things and sort of grown not just London. So we've got office in Birmingham. So we've got a Muslim community in Birmingham now. We've got a really big community in Germany. Obviously, we're a German bank, but we never really had like a Muslim network in Germany. Um, and as you know, in Germany, there's a lot of sort of Turkish origin Muslims. So we've really grown the Germany side of things. And alhamdulillah, we do a lot of really cool events. Actually, this is very timely that we're recording this today. So yesterday, we just had our big Eid al-Adha celebration in the office, um, which was amazing, which went really, really well. Yeah, I crossed something off my bucket list yesterday as well. I recited Quran in the lobby of Deutsche Bank yesterday, which is like something off the bucket list, which is really cool. And these sort of things, again, it's just about trying new things, and people respect you for doing that. And so I've been leading the network. Yeah, so I was part of the admin team for a number of years. Helping out behind the scenes. Um, and then sort of 2 years ago, I sort of took over as chair of the network. And alhamdulillah, it's just gone from strength to strength. Um, my two sort of goals with the network and with any of these sort of communities, Muslim communities, is one, to build that relationship amongst Muslims at the company, whichever company you guys end up in. Um, but you want the Muslims to know each other, and you want to know that there's people you can ask. If you need to find out about prayer rooms, about halal food, about anything, even if it's just meeting up for lunch or dinners after work. You want to know that there are other Muslims there that you can do that with. If you want to pray Dhuhr, Asr in Jama'at, or in winter, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha in Jama'at, you want to know that there are people there that you can do that with. So that's the first goal. And the second goal is, as I mentioned earlier, is to raise awareness for all the non-Muslims that you're working with. Again, I reiterate, like a lot of these non-Muslims that we work with, the only sort of exposure they have to Islam is the news or BBC News. Do we really want to leave that? Do we really want to leave Islam to BBC News? I don't know. Not really. Um, yeah, like, I'm wearing a special jumper today, but yeah, we can maybe go into that another time. But yeah, so as I was saying, so yeah, they're the two things: building that community and raising awareness for non-Muslims. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, so yesterday we just came off the back of a really special Eid event. Like we brought in one of the Muslim chaplains from Canary Wharf. She came, like she's a sort of leading female scholar in London, and gave a really beautiful reminder to all the Muslims, non-Muslims, about Eid al-Adha, sacrifice, what all of it means, why do we have two Eids, all of that stuff. And it's really really nice. Alhamdulillah.
That is amazing. I really hope the whatever firm we end up at has something similar to that, and that leads me on to a broad but
If
final
if
question for
if
this
your
section.
company doesn't have that, you guys need to be the ones to start
Oh, 1,000,000%. Yes, yeah, that was a good spin. Well done. Yes, 1,000,000%. But yeah, I mean, the final but broad question of this section is, and you kind of answered the first half of it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, how important is it from the organization's perspective, to support employee networks like the one that you lead, but then also looking to the future? What would you like to see change across the wider corporate space in terms of faith, culture-based inclusion?
it. Yeah, that's a great question, and I'd say two things. Firstly, it's amazing for the current employees that are already there at the company. Like a big thing, if you put like your manager or CEO's hat on, you want your employees to stay there and to grow and to move around the company, but retain that knowledge within the firm, right? You don't want them leaving every year, every 2 years, and you want that constant turnover. And one big thing that helps with retention is if people can feel like they can be themselves at work, if they can come to the office and know that they can fulfill their obligations, fulfill their prayers. You know, they can accommodate for fasting, for Ramadan, take time off for Eid, that sort of thing. It goes a long, long way for retention. So that's me like putting my CEO's hat on, thinking about like your current workforce. And secondly, thinking about building the next generation and the new workforce and the graduates and interns coming in. For you guys, it's very important that when you like go on a company website or you go on LinkedIn and you type in a company and you see the list of employees, that you see people that have been through similar experiences to what you guys have been. And that's one. And two, you want to see people in senior positions that look like you, that talk like you, that have the same religious beliefs as you, just so you're comfortable that you know that that is a place that you can work and be happy at. So by companies sort of investing in these sort of networks and communities within the firm, it goes a long way in terms of outreach and recruitment of the interns and graduates at whichever company you're at.
Yeah, no, 100%. And just the sheer fact that like, I know for Muslims specifically, we make up like a quarter of the global population. So, and then if like a quarter is a huge amount, I know the proportions are probably mixed and looking at the West and the East, but like the point I'm trying to get at is that it's
We
you
have
know,
big families.
yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
yeah, and then that inclusion just needs to be highlighted across the board. But then I think like a question I want to ask within that then is that looking to the future, like what change would you like to see within this space? Not even just Islamic, but like other faiths maybe as well.
Yeah, in terms of change, and I think there's still a little bit of a way to go, but we've seen it happen with other things where sort of companies embed sort of certain targets and ambitions within their overall objectives, whether that's gender diversity, race diversity, or any other type of diversity. It goes a long way to sort of set the tone from the top in terms of what are the priorities for the organization and the workforce. And it would be amazing to see faith coming into that equation, um, which I don't think is quite there yet, but inshallah, maybe in the future, where you have certain, whether that it doesn't have to be like specific, X% of the workforce needs to be a certain faith, more that we set up certain sort of insight days or initiatives for, you could have like how you have like the 10,000 black interns. You could have, you can have 10,000 Muslim interns, 10,000 Jewish interns, or, these sort of things, just to target people that otherwise would have no idea about your industry or your company or the kind of work that you do. I think that would be really, really amazing. Actually, on that, and why that came to my mind is, um, there's a new sort of initiative that I'm supporting as a mentor. It's called My Muslim Mentor, and whether you guys may have heard of it. So it's a new initiative that's starting up, that's sort of trying to link up Muslim professionals with students who are looking for Muslim mentors, right? And as part of that, it's yeah, it's just about seeing those role models in the right places that you can connect with. Yeah, so that's something I'm sort of working behind the scenes. I don't know when this
Yeah.
episode will get released, but I think it's okay to say that at this time.
No. I believe that's under the umbrella of Ihsan, right?
Yes, yes.
That yeah. I'm great friends with the team behind that. They know of us, we know of them. You know,
Yeah, so
brainstorming group
I know a lot of
chats.
the Warwick. I know a lot of the Warwick guys, so that's how they wrote me in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And to be perfectly honest, any mentoring, especially my Muslim mentor, of course, I remember something me and Noman said a few episodes back, is that it's hard to aspire to get to a certain role when you can't see someone that looks like you doing that, right? And that's something that's changing within the diversity and inclusion space, which is great for students like us. But in terms of a podcast, we can only ask the questions that you can only hear answers to questions that we ask. Whereas with my Muslim mentor and any other similar mentoring platform, to have that specialized advice and insights will truly be inspirational and helpful to a lot of people. And I think that unfortunately provides the perfect moving on point to the last section of the episode. It's been such a great episode. We've talked about everything we've wanted to talk about, especially diversity inclusion of Muslims within the corporate world. But we're going to finish off with the final three questions we ask to every guest we have on to the podcast, Abrar. And not only does this give our guests a chance to reflect back, but also it gives some tips for students inadvertently at the same time. So, Naman, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna kick off these final three. So, Abrar, looking back on your continuing career journey, but also your personal journey and achievements as well, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I'm say I'm definitely proud of the work that I've done with the Muslim network at Deutsche in terms of expanding sort of the Muslim community into a global network, into one where there's a real sense of community at the bank amongst the Muslims, and there's also a growing sense of awareness amongst non-Muslims of the beauty of our religion. Um, one of the cool things that I did last year is in our office we have a TV studio, believe it or not. We have a like a fully fledged TV studio in our office. So I booked out the TV studio and we recorded. Like I got my exec team to come in and we recorded like a documentary style interview um, video, like a serious production, just on Islamophobia Awareness Month, what it means to be Muslim, all these questions they're asking me now in terms of how can we show our faith in the workplace and be comfortably Muslim. We produced like a really cool um, video that I posted on my LinkedIn actually. So yeah, that's something I'm very proud of.
No, great. And it's just, I think, just picking out one word you said, just that, or one phrase, it's that sense of community, because I had it in me that I used to think that, okay, I'm going to uni, I've got that, like, that ISOC, community event, and then after I break into the, after and when I break into the workplace, it's just going to be, a bit more silent. But then the fact that, I mean, your explanation and your answer to that question, and of course, this whole episode is just proves that wrong, doesn't it? That the fact that whether you're working at Deutsche Bank or possibly even any other firm, that sense of community, if you push for it, if you pioneer for it, then it will always be there. And that's something that's really great to hear. But then the penultimate question of this episode then is that if you could give your younger self any piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, these are really great questions, um, to my younger self, I would say that um, you know, you can have your plan, you can have your vision, you can have your um, steps that you've mapped out in your head that this is where you want to be. Life may take you a certain way, but just know that way is what was always meant to happen and is what was going to be best for you. Like particularly when you're young, when you're a student, you're faced with rejections, you're faced with you want this dream job, you want this dream role, and sometimes you don't get that, and you think it's the end of the world, but just know like there's something better in store.
Yeah, we do get that a lot, and it's great. We'll still ask it just because I said it reiterate a lot in this episode. I think it's my new favorite word, but to reiterate the fact that making mistakes is part of anyone's journey, but learning from them is a key part for sure. I got the privilege of asking the last question again, a bittersweet moment because it's been such a brilliant episode. But Abrar, for yourself, what's the biggest takeaway you hope our audience, our listeners, viewers, and followers get from your continuing story so far?
Mm, the biggest takeaway I would say is, and this has been a big theme of our episode, is that sense of community. And we live in a world now, particularly for us as if you've grown up in the West, that the community feel is sort of slowly going away. Like when we grew up, like we knew everyone in our street, we knew our neighbors, we'd just be playing on the street. Um, but now, that sort of environment is not really there anymore. But we have to make sure that wherever you are in your career, whether you're a student, you're working, you eventually get married, not married, whatever you end up doing, don't lose that sense of community, wherever that community is, whether that's at your mosque, at your school, your childhood friends, your university friends, your work colleagues. Don't lose that community, because as I mentioned, and this not like being cynical or anything like that. It's, you never know like what doors anyone can open for you, and likewise you don't know like what doors you can open for someone else, right? So yeah, that's sort of the biggest takeaway, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that sense of community also just gives back to yourself, and in that, like, it's rewarding in a way when you're within a community, you're giving back to a community that's built you when you were young. So that whole idea of like don't forget your roots and everything. So yeah, 100%, that's perfect advice, and I think like a great way to end off the episode.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And it has really genuinely been such a great episode. Definitely lived up to the hype that me and Noman built up in our own heads. So, Abrar, we really thank you, and just say Jazakallah for joining us on the Smart Money Show as usual. And for our listeners and viewers, if you are watching us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed for some reason, then of course I believe Abrar has given you a perfect reason to subscribe for future episodes just like this one, where we provide insights from every corner of the financial services industry that me and Noman are trying very hard to break into. But of course, if you are listening to us on audio platform as well, that does apply too. You can follow us on those platforms and drop a comment on either one to let us know if there's a guest we should be speaking to that we haven't spoken to yet, a topic that we should talk about that we haven't spoken about yet, or if you just want to refute some of the claims that we've made on some of our previous episodes, then please feel free to get in touch. I'll direct them all to our HR department, which is just Naman. But please do engage with our social media platforms, which is in the bio of all of our audio and video platforms as well. We post some events which will be coming up very soon that we'll be speaking at and hosting, and also some of the meet the team and join the team opportunities that we have, such as internships across all our different departments, as well as other stuff that we'll be launching very, very soon. But as usual, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week for yet another episode of the Smart Money Show. Take care and stay tuned. Thank you.